live. One second. Over here, CD music. Oh, CD music. /play. Yo, TS Jost, you're here before literally anybody else. How are you doing? Oh my goodness, I hadn't even said the thing yet. You're here so early. I don't think I've ever seen anyone come so early to chat before. That's not true. The people were chatting offline at some point. One second, I gotta tell everyone on Discord I am live. And then we can go. Yeah. To be honest, I don't really know why I'm streaming right now. I just okay, one second. That was embarrassing. Don't look at Discord right now. And now you can look at Discord. Of people, another episode. Wonderful. Hello to internet. Leos Labs, welcome. You don't have a stream starting soon screen, so we got to be here early to hear the entire rant. Yeah, to be honest, it might be a bit ranty today. Yeah, might be a bit ranty today. But yeah, I hope everyone's having a great day. I realize. Oh my goodness. Does XOR, hey, what's up? Yeah, what's up? How's swimming going? I would like to say I'm swimming more regularly than I am, but I'm not really able to recently. Local Padre, hey, finally learned how to flip turn. Oh, dude, you have? Super cool. Man, flip turning, at least for me, when I'm swimming, that flip turn experience is like my favorite part of my life in general. Like, that sounds stupid, but it kind of is. I really like the act of swimming. And in particular, the feeling of just nailing a good flip turn is just, there is no experience like it. There's something just about hitting that wall at the end of every turn. It's just an experience, you know, and you know, that slight disorientation you get when you're staring up at the ceiling, when you were staring down at the floor. I don't know. There's just a lot to it. I like swimming. And when people start enjoying the sport in a way that I also enjoy, it's a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and get started. Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Welcome back to another episode of Leos Labs. It's been a few weeks since my last stream. I don't know when the last stream was. I'm assuming I used to do it a lot in university at the pool near my office. Now the city I live in doesn't really have any public pools. Yeah, I mean, I am incredibly fortunate that I'm living in Barcelona, and there are actually some really good pools in Barcelona. I don't want to say which pool I go. I do say back. Hello, wonderful people of the internet. Welcome back to. Yeah, welcome back to. Yeah. Anyway, there's some good pools. I'm not going to say which one I go to because I might dox myself, and I don't want to do that. But yeah, there's fortunately a lot of good pools around, even some 50-meter pools that I can go to every now and again. Okay, so let's let's talk. Guys, I have to turn off lights over here. I'm a bit depressed. I'm going to come out and say it. I'm a bit depressed. I think everyone is a little depressed today. In fact, if you're not depressed, I don't. Am I peaking? I feel like I'm peaking a little bit. One second. Let me just. Is this better? No, I think it's about the same. How about that? Is that better? Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's better. Maybe it's not. Anyway, I don't even know why I clicked the stream button today. You peaked in your 20s, dude. Yes, I realize I'm 30 now. I realize that. I'm 32 right now. I have a 2-year-old child who is still not sleeping through the night, which is why I'm unable to do any streams regularly because I'm just so freaking tired all the time. And yet this morning, I woke up. I went to bed at 1 o'clock in the morning. Why? Because I was doing work. And now you might be saying to yourself, why are you working at 1 a.m.? It's because I can't work during, that's the only time I can work at 1 in the morning apparently. And then I wake up at 5. Why do I wake up at 5? You might say to look at election results. And no, it's because my kid woke up at 5 and was playing drums in the middle of the living room at 5 in the morning. I'm like, dude, you got 6 hours of sleep. You're 2. You need to get 10 per night. Anyway, this is my rant for the day. Hey, how's everyone doing? At least you're not balding yet. I mean, meh. I've got hair. I'm not going to let it down, but I've got hair. Well, I mean, like, I'm using, like, I'm preventing myself. Like, it was to the point that, like, I started to. And then what I did is I just started taking the finasteride and minoxidil or whatever just to make sure it doesn't happen to me at least for the next 10 years. So I've got 10 years at least until those medications start wearing off. And then by that point, hopefully I'm on HRT and I don't have to worry about it anymore. So what are we talking about? How's Leia doing? She's doing great, actually. I did some voice training the other day. I'm pretty happy with how the voice is going. That leads me on to my next topic. So I've been writing a book. You guys know I've been writing a book. I've been talking about it a lot. I love writing. And And I've been wondering if I should just do some of the writing here on stream, but I can't do writing streams. I've said that time and time again. I'm not able to do writing streams. I don't know why. So I started writing a new book. And this particular book, man, I am in love with this book. It's amazing. It is a novel in verse. Which means it's a novel. For those who don't know what this is, it is a novel that uses poetry instead of prose, right? In particular, I use tetrameter with rhyming doublets and a mix of different metrical feet. A lot of people like to be like strictly dactylic or iambic pentameter or something like this, but I don't really like to use like strict metrical feet. I like to kind of mix it up a bit because it makes it more interesting. Anyway, what am I talking about? I've been thinking about streaming again. I do miss having conversations with you guys just about random stuff. I miss having some sort of social life outside of my work. And to be honest, I don't know. It's just some stuff. I just enjoy ranting. I enjoy rambling. All this kind of stuff. I've just been trying to figure out the right way to do it. I'm still quite burnt out from programming, so I don't know if I'm going to do some programming streams. But finding a way to work these writing streams in would be, I don't know, kind of fun, I think. It might be something that people could be into, and I could try it out. And that's where the Leia voice comes in, because I might actually have to do some mild voice acting, which is going to be super cringe, but I thought maybe we could go for it anyway. So on to today's topic. I'm going to talk about it. Audiobook. I thought about it. I really did. If you install a bot on the Discord server, we could write together. Yeah, you mentioned that bot, and I'm interested in it. I'm not sure how it works. I hadn't like looked into it fully, but I think it's like a write with me type of thing. Yeah, I need to, maybe I'll look at that now. You don't need to write anything if you just audiobook instead. So that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if I should do the writing on stream, or if I should use stream as a motivating force to get the writing done off of stream and then do the audiobook portion on stream. Yeah, I don't know. Lots of things to think about there. But to be honest, guys, today I didn't really start stream to talk about any of that. I started stream to talk about the thing that I think everybody's thinking about right now, and that is actually the U.S. election. I'm a bit depressed, guys. I don't know what to say. Like in my mind, I knew Kamala was not going to win. Like, I don't think anybody rationally was going into this election thinking this was going to be an easy win for Kamala Harris, you know? Yet, there is a big difference between, you know, there was like a little bit of hope in my mind, like just a little bit of hope going into the election that she could pull it off. And, you know, she was on par with my expectations in that it was close in many areas, but she just didn't quite pull it off. And I think there's a lot of people who are probably very upset about this, and rightfully so. I mean, like I just said, I'm very upset about this as well. And I don't know, I just thought maybe if people wanted to chat or vent a little bit about this, maybe this stream wouldn't necessarily be the worst place to do that. You know what I mean? Back in 2020, when COVID was a big deal, you know, we used to regularly talk about it and the issues people were having with socializing and stuff like that. And I thought maybe if just one person is willing to listen and or chat or rant or whatever, just get all of the negativity out, maybe stream is worth it. You know what I mean? On my end, I just, you know, there's just a lot of things that I don't understand, right? Like, and I know I don't understand, right? Like, I don't understand how Trump got into office. In 2016, I didn't understand it. And here in 2024, I still don't understand it. To me, it seems like the Republicans don't have any actual policy. Like, it feels like all they're doing is attacking wokeism, and they can't even define what wokeism is. And it's very annoying for me as a U.S. citizen to see my country that I do like, you know, in some ways associate with, seeing that country just fall down the drain. You know, it's very, very disheartening, right? And you see so many people online right now saying that this is like the end of wokeism. You know what I mean? Like, they're saying that this is what happens when liberals try to shove stuff down your throats. But it's like, but I personally have never, I think, shoved anything down anybody's throats, and I feel like I'm the definition of being woke, you know? Okay, maybe not the definition in that, like, I'm not, like, strictly taking hormones right now, and I'm not, like, you know, I'm, I guess, presenting as a straight white male, right? So in that way, I mean, I guess I'm not the definition, but my point is that, like, in terms of people who understand, you know, maybe not necessarily the patriarchy, but like I understand the issues and I'm trying to explain those issues to people. Like I'm probably on the I'm on the woke side is what I'm trying to say here. And like I've never actually said you have to I'm not sitting here being like, oh, you've got to trans your children now. Don't forget, you got to trans your children. I'm not sitting here saying like, oh, by the way, my children are they, them until they've officially decided their gender. I'm not there. That's not what I am. I'm literally just saying, hey, there are trans people that exist. Or I'm saying something like, I don't know, hey, straight white males, specifically attractive straight white men, get advantages. And I, as someone who was at least at some point classically considered an attractive straight white male, had a lot of advantages growing up that other people just did not have. And I can totally understand that people have completely different experiences based on just where they were born, how they were born, who they are when they're born, and that sometimes you have to work through this. They talk about diversity and inclusion, and to me, those sound like good things, and yet some people, for some reason, think they're bad. It's just, what I'm trying to say is that, it's very frustrating to me that people are trying to end wokeism when, to me, the wokeism is okay, it's fine. I have no issues with any of that kind of stuff. I'm not trying to shove it down your throat. I'm not telling you have to do this. I'm just saying that it's kind of nice to see people with different political perspectives, that I can talk to at work. It's kind of nice to see people with different gender identities. It's kind of nice to see people who are different, from different areas of life nowadays. That's all I'm trying to say, right? So anyway, let me go ahead and read up on chat. US elections is so confusing. Blue means left and red means right. In Sweden, it's the opposite. That's fair. Whatever I don't like is woke, and that's the whole point. It feels important to them that they don't define woke so they can keep retargeting it. Right, that's fair. Hey, what's up? Yeah, we're kind of having an event session, and I do understand that this isn't everyone's cup of tea. Totally get that. Feel free just to leave. Wokeism is what happened to California. You present it like something benign, but it has real world you are exactly the person I want to talk to. Yes, please, stay in chat. I want to ask. I really want to ask. What is wrong with California? I need to know. What is wrong with California? I have a lot of... okay. I have friends who live there. Maybe not a lot of friends, but I have a decent number of friends who live there. And everyone there says it's great. What is the issue with it? Could you just explain it to me? My issue is none of that. It's just people not respecting other people's opinions. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say, right? I think this is my core issue, with the Republican side of things, specifically in the past few years, right? For some reason, ever since kind of Trump came to office, there's been this huge anti-wokeism thing. And again, all that feels like to me is people who are just not respecting other people's opinion, right? Literally, if I walk through the door, I don't care if you're Republican, I don't care if you're Democrat, I don't care. You're a person, I'm talking to you, and we're having a conversation about something that probably has nothing to do with your political beliefs. It has to do with quantum chemistry. It has to do with, I don't know, molecular dynamics. It has to do with whatever it is that we're talking about. It does not matter if you're anything. None of this matters, right? And so anytime I hear people being like, oh, I hate trans people, it's or this conversation comes up where people are supporting J.K. Rowling when it comes to her trans activism stuff, anti-trans active. I'm like, but why? Why does it matter if the person next to you is wearing a dress? What does that change about your life? To me, it doesn't affect me in any way. So what if they want to be called a she or they want to be called a he? I don't get it. Why should I care? How does that change my race? I also agree. I don't want people's beliefs shoved down my throats as well. Exactly. And so this is my issue, I think, because then what happens is you'll go to Twitter and you'll say, okay, X, whatever it's called now. I quit using it when Elon took over. You go there and you say something like, yo, as a cis white male, I have issues. Not issues. As a cis white male, I feel like I had a pretty good life. You could say that, right? And your tweet, X, whatever it's called, would be banned. Why? Because you said the word cis, which is a totally benign word. It means, you could also use the word normal and it would fit for 99% of cases. It's just that people don't want to use the word normal because normal it means that trans people are not normal. It's weird. Anyway, I can tell you this, and I also agree. I don't want people's beliefs shoved down my throats as well. I can tell you this, and is a guess why people voted Trump. Now, could you elaborate a bit more? Because in my mind, and this is again what I'm struggling with, and I need some more information here. I don't see the left shoving anything down people's throats, right? What I see is the right consistently arguing that the left is shoving stuff down their throats when they're not. Basically, it's just like it's like little things that they're just getting angry at. It's like it like the whole there was like a few years ago there was this whole like oh, you don't care, maybe I'm asking the wrong people, but a few years ago there was this whole like debacle where these people were like, I don't want to bake a cake for this gay couple or something like this, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I guess it's within your rights as a business owner to deny service. And then I guess that's fine. I don't know. And then I think obviously this was against a lot of issue. Like, I mean, you should. I don't know. It's an issue, right? Like, I guess I shouldn't really go into this. But the point is, because of that particular bakery ended up making a huge amount of money, just an insane amount of money, because they denied service to the people baking the cake, right? And so what they're doing is they're basically using this anti-wokeism thing as a way to gain money for themselves. Like, that's what they're doing, right? Like, it's not like we're sitting here and like making anything up. Like, literally, the whole thing is they're acting like victims, so people give them money. Like, that's it. That's what they're doing. I'm just saying I don't want anything I don't want things shoved down my throats, just like you don't. But I'm open to listening, just like you are. Yeah, and to be honest, in this stream right now, you could very easily argue that I am shoving things down your throats in a way that I don't. Maybe I do, but I don't try to do too often. This is a stream griping about politics. That's what this is. And in a sense, it's very difficult for me to have this stream without talking about the core issues. And this is why I really want this guy. C8F144, I want him to tell me, or her, I want them to tell me what happened in California. What's the issue with California? Tell me right now, please. I want to know. Basically, it's the right shoving religion down everyone's throat while projecting this on the left. That's true, too. Like, you can't argue that the left is shoving stuff down your throats when you're also trying to, like, force your own religion down people's throats, you know? Just popped in, so I'm not too sure this is on topic. My biggest problem is companies hiring less competent individuals for the sake of diversity. That's a good point. I want to talk about that. That's great. That's fair. You're not forcing it on me. This is the conversation we have. Right. San Francisco is basically a trash bag zombie apocalypse. We cannot agree on a common reality. There is no discussion. Okay. But I haven't heard this before. Right? And so right now you're having a conversation with me that I've never heard, that San Francisco is a trash bag zombie apocalypse. I have not heard that. And so as someone who hasn't heard that, I want to know more. And could you just tell me more? Like, I really want to know more. So that's fine. You're not forcing it on me. Like, what does that mean? Like, there are not literally trash bags and zombies, right? So is there like a drug crisis going on? I don't know. Remember, I live in Barcelona, right? I just happen to be a U.S. citizen, and I used to live in the U.S. for a long time. I've been out of the U.S. for a long time, so I don't know. This is stuff I don't know. I don't understand, right? Let's see, what do we have here? So about diversity and inclusion. I do want to talk about this because I think this is a very interesting thing to discuss. And I'm actually on the side that you should be hiring people of diverse backgrounds. And here's why. So let me go here and let me open up Zernal PP. Okay, so let's say you're a hiring manager, right? And you're trying to hire somebody for a job, okay? So let's go here. And I'm someone who has hired people for jobs. So this is not coming out of nowhere. I personally hired a few people for a few positions. I know what it means to hire people, right? I've interviewed a bunch of people, right? So when you're trying to find people for a job, there's generally this line, right? And this line indicates maybe the quality of the people you're trying to hire, right? And so let me just go ahead and draw a couple lines here. So we'll draw 2 lines here, and then we're going to draw a little graph over here. Let's do this here. Okay. So what we'll put on the y-axis here is quality, right? And what we put over here on this axis, I guess, is person, right? We'll have like individual people here, right? So in general, we have 2 lines that we worry about. So one is the minimum required, like the minimum requirements for the job. If it's a programming job, the person must know programming. If it is a, I don't know, if it's a art job, they probably should be pretty good at doing art. You know what I mean? Like the minimum requirements necessary, right? And then here is like Goldilocks zone. Did I even spell that right? Basically, if someone hits this metric up here, like they are so perfect for the job. They are so perfect that there's no question this person is hired, right? And now let's say people are trying to get this job, right? So you have person 1. They come in, and they're somewhere here. They're in this minimum range here. Oh, let's draw this as a square so it's a little bit easier, right? So they're here. Now you have person 2. They're here. Right? You have person 3 down here and person 4 up here, right? Now you have person 5 here and person 6 here, okay? Now, very clearly, there are a couple people here who did better than the other people based on your interviews, right? You know for a fact that this person right down here is out. Oh, sorry, meant to be an X. This person is out. No doubt, they are out. These two people, rather these three people here, here, and here, are all people that should be considered. But very clearly, these two people are just above and beyond, right? And so you might think to yourself, let's hire this person, right? Because they're just the number one candidate. However, also look at this person, because they both hit that Goldilocks zone. They're both really, really good at what they do. And both of them would be perfectly good in this position, right? And even though person number two might not necessarily be the absolute best candidate, they might have something else to bring to the table that could allow them to perform better in the long term. So let's say this person is, coming from a disadvantaged position. Let's say they are an immigrant coming to the United States from a country that is not typically considered a tech giant, right? And so they have not had as much time to study programming. They haven't had as much time to learn the math. They haven't had as much time just to do the stuff, right? In this case, I could make a fairly good argument as to why you'd want to take the second person. Because taking the second person, someone who got into that Goldilocks zone while still being at a disadvantage, can probably perform much better when trained properly, right? And so this is the argument with diversity and inclusion. The argument is that there's probably more than one good person to do the job. And in the case that there is more than one good person, it makes sense to hire somebody who has a mindset that you don't typically have for that job. That's all it means. And so when people are against diversity and inclusion and they're saying, hey, I don't like the fact that people are hiring not the best person for the job, keep in mind that this best person for the job thing is kind of this fictional thing, right? Like, it's basically just, do you match all the criteria? Do you hit the Goldilocks zone? If you do hit the Goldilocks zone, will bringing you on my team make my whole team better? Like, are you presenting something? Or are you going to provide insights that I did not have before? And this is why I think diversity is really good. In both these cases, either candidate would be perfect. There's no question that they're both very well qualified. The question is, between two very, very well qualified candidates, which one should you choose? And in that case, I would argue the diverse person is probably good. That's the argument for diversity and inclusion. I don't think anybody's arguing that this candidate should win just because they happen to be from a diverse background. That's the argument. The argument is that these people here, either one could win. This doesn't happen this often. Getting the best candidates despite prejudice is a point of DEI, right? Like Germany, in my opinion, this is a very blurred line. In ideal world, the talk of diversity and whatever it is, wouldn't even come to begin with, since you would be completely biased. What I think is, as long as conditions met, if the person fit with the team, then take that person. But I don't take the person for the sake of diversity when he doesn't fit in with the team. Yes, exactly. That is, I think, exactly the point that that everyone is making, right? I don't think anybody is making the argument that we should take like people who are not very good at the job just because they fit the diversity quota. And I think people who are making those arguments, because certainly I've heard that before, if somebody is making that argument, I don't think their concept is based in reality, right? What I'm arguing is that you should have a slight bias towards diverse groups. Just a slight one, you know? So if there's more than one qualified person, take that diverse person, right? But if you have like a Nobel laureate, laureate? How do you even pronounce that word? If you have someone who won a Nobel Prize coming in and applying for a job, you're gonna win. I mean, you're gonna probably hire the Nobel Prize winner. Like, there's no question, right? It's not like you're gonna hire some other person just because of the color of their skin, right? I think most people who have hired people understand what is meant by DEI. But for those who have not hired people and have not, done these interviews and maybe haven't considered this, it sounds like you're hiring the worst person for the job when that's not entirely true. I'm not sure if you've seen a city with a fentanyl problem, but it feels like zombie apocalypse. Additionally, high taxes, homelessness, and dirt chase most of the productive people away. The main reason for all of the issues is wokeism. Okay. I still want to learn more about this topic. So one, fentanyl. To be honest, I think you're right. I don't think I actually have seen a city with a severe fentanyl problem because I just haven't. I honestly had not even really heard that fentanyl was an issue until like a few weeks ago, and it has not been in the news that I've seen. And so because of that, I have not I just haven't. I didn't even realize it was such a problem that it could affect an entire city. So that's one thing that I didn't know about. No, we're talking about high taxes and homelessness. And actually, there is a lot of truth to that. I went to California a few times, and there's a lot of homeless people in California, in part because the standard of living is like you could have $100,000 in California and you could still be homeless, right? Because you simply cannot find a place to live. And in my mind, that isn't necessarily because of wokeism. That's just because of the nature of capitalism in that particular area. It's concentrated into a very, very fine point in the middle of Silicon Valley. And because those groups of people are making so much money, so much more money than the average American, just the housing costs, everything went up, right? And because everything went up, again, this is just pure capitalism coming into play, supply and demand, it now takes a lot more to break into that system, right? And so I think what I'm trying to figure out is exactly how any of this, like the fentanyl issue, the high taxes, the homelessness, the high taxes, I guess, because it's related to democratic policy, but how that's related to wokeism. To me, wokeism seems like a separate thing that is completely unrelated to everything else. Some companies are doing diversity hiring, brownie points, and acting in bad faith. And to be honest, there are good and bad companies. That completely 100% agree with. If there are companies who are hiring specifically because you happen to have a different skin color or you're a different gender or whatever, look, I 100% believe that's a bad company and you shouldn't be working for them, frankly. But I think most people are nuanced on this issue. I don't think it's this black and white thing. And I think that's just what's been happening recently with a lot of this political discussion. So many people are just black and white about everything. It's like, guys, it's not black and white. You know, everything here is gray. It's I was going to say 50 Shades of Grey, but I don't want people thinking that I'm talking about porn. So I'm going to say it's like, it's all gray. That's what I'm going to say. Nothing is black and white. People can't even come to the middle, right? And not only capitalism, but hoarding housing makes rent go up. That's true. I will say that I think the house hoarding is not as big of a deal in like San Francisco as it is in, for example, here in Barcelona. They're completely different issues. Corruption, legalizing crime, and losing war on drugs is the wokeism that led to those things. Okay, that's what I needed to know. So, again, I have to say something. I really appreciate that you're still here in chat. I have to be honest here. It's very rare that there's people who come in and they are willing to have discussions about this from the perspective of someone that I don't normally get in this chat, right? So I'm really happy about this. And I just want to know, what crimes are being legalized? Like, what is legal now that wasn't legal before? The war on drugs, I assume, is a fentanyl issue, because I assume it's not marijuana. Again, I'm learning about the fentanyl issue right now. And then corruption, I want to know more about that. What is corrupt? What happened? Why is it corrupt? And what crimes have been legalized, right? And how is that related to wokeism? Because in my mind, wokeism is the DEI stuff we were talking about before. That doesn't feel to me the same thing as corruption or legalizing crime. It feels different to me. Wokeism to me is like accepting transgender diversities or accepting that there is a patriarchy or any of this kind of stuff. That feels quite different than like the war on drugs and stuff like this. It baffles me that some view California as this proto-socialist state when it really is almost hardcore capitalist utopia. Exactly. That is what I see it as. Like, I see it as not unfettered capitalism, but I see it as like truly like an American state. Like, if any state in the Union is exemplary of what it means to be American, I would say it's California. Good, beautiful morning. The light shines in. I guess, yeah, I mean, it's not morning for me, but hey, how you doing? Sometimes I have to laugh. I doubt some people even know what is right and left. Outside the U.S., some place the right and left are completely reversed. That's also completely true, right? Like, you know, one core issue with American politics is that there's really just this two-party system. You've got you know, Democrats and Republicans, and frankly, neither one is really progressive, and neither one it's weird, right? Like, it's a weird system that we have this two-party system that's complete. It's not normal, right? And so when we're defining right and left, the definitions of right and left are not necessarily aligned with Democrat and Republican, right? They just happen to be, right? Let me go ahead. The point of the war on drugs was not to stop the use of drugs, it was to destroy welfare, especially for black people. That's something I've definitely heard a lot of. Like, the fact is that marijuana, for example, is like not most of the marijuana convictions, from what I understand, were like for African Americans, not for white people, right? Theft is not enforced and therefore legal. theft is not enforced. Theft is not enforced in any shopping center. So my dad runs a mall, and this is something that a lot of people don't know. It's very surprising that you know how there's sometimes guards in front of Walmart? Like, not guards, they're like welcome people, right? But, very clearly they're there to act just a little bit threatening so that you don't feel like you're going to, so you don't steal anything, right? That's kind of what they're there for, right? These people actually cannot legally stop you if you've stolen something, right? If you steal something, what you're supposed to do is just let them get away and let the cops deal with it. Because if you, as an employee, then start trying to take the stuff back that the other people have stolen, you're basically going to lose your job, because that is a lawsuit waiting to happen, right? You have overstepped your boundaries as a company employee to do that, right? So basically, nowhere in the country, if you steal something, I mean, unless it's like very clearly like I don't know. This is a really gray area, is what I'm trying to say. Now, when you say it's illegal, it's not enforced. Again, it's very rarely enforced anywhere in the country. But I am curious as to where, I think this is so interesting to me, because as, like I said before, San Francisco, and places in California that have just incredibly high, standard of living. They cost so much to live in. It makes sense why people are disliking living there, and why people might even try to steal from stores and stuff, because they're homeless at $100,000 per year salary, it's insane. I'm not justifying what they're doing. And so I guess what you're saying is that because of that, there are more people who are, there are more theft reports there, and these just go unnoticed, right? Because people don't care enough. Yeah, I could understand that happening, and I'd believe that if you told me that. Right, stay right, we are, left equals going forward. Right, that's kind of how I see it too. Conservative means conserving where we're at. Progressive means moving forward. I think left and right maybe don't exactly make sense in the U.S., but I think you could split it into progressive and conservative, I think. California state law holds that stealing merchandise worth $950 or less is just a misdemeanor. Oh, that's good information, which means that law enforcement prohibitively won't bother to investigate. And if they do, prosecutors will let it go. So that means shoplifting is a crime without consequence. Yes, exactly. I think that's exactly how it works in Alabama as well, but I think the number varies a bit. So I think it's $300 in Alabama, which is where my dad used to run this shopping center. But it's similar everywhere else, right? Hey, what's up, Void? Consider humans' inherent tendency to decide in favor of people looking similar to oneself, making the decision possibly biased a priori if the hiring person doesn't correct for possible personal biases. Not saying that therefore diversity points are good, but this helps understand the fact that reasonable people look for a way to offset systemic bias at all, and then just stumble upon bad solutions to that. Yeah, I think this is kind of my opinion on this as well. I think DEI, if done well, is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it's probably a great thing. But it's probably just very poorly implemented, which has caused people to hate it, right? That's probably exactly what's happening. Because as someone who's hired someone before and talked about DEI, there are certain situations where I do actually want a really diverse group of people working for me, right? And that sometimes might come at the cost for hiring the absolute best candidate and instead taking the second best candidate who happens to have a more diverse opinion. Because that diversity pushes them over the edge and makes them the number one candidate for me, right? But that's quite different than just hiring somebody because they have a certain skin color, right? Really different. And if there are companies who are hiring people just based on their skin color or their gender identity or anything like that, 100% understand that this sucks and that shouldn't be happening. You really think it's going to be all right? I'll talk about that in a second. If you were to ask me, both Democrats and Republicans are bad. They probably say they probably say what their voter base want to hear. My definition and understanding of right and left just comes from studying history of the French Revolution. So let's talk about Democrats and Republicans both being equal, because this is a common point that I hear all the time. My mom says it. They say, both of them are bad. You're going for the least bad option, right? They'll say, every time the Republicans do something, they say, well, the Democrats do it too. And I think 10 years ago, I would have said the same thing. I genuinely would have said the same thing. And in fact, 10 years ago, we didn't have this issue, right? So when I left the US, it was 2014. 2014, and I was going to OIST, the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. During that time, there were, it was the first of many government shutdowns, right? And I remember being really annoyed at this because we were in the middle of a conference, and that conference was actually run in part, subsidized a little bit by the US government. And so some people were not allowed to travel because they were technically working for the US government, right? And so because of that, the conference just did not go as well as it could have because several keynote speakers were not able to speak, right? And I was very frustrated at this because I was one of the co-organizers in a way. Like it was run at Auburn, and I was trying to help out where I could. And so, with all that said, I was very upset about this government shutdown. And I remember talking to my professor about this. I was like, hey, this sucks, doesn't it? And he says, yeah, it sucks. But to be honest, you know, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, it doesn't really matter who's in office. And he said this because at the time, the amount of research funding that is put into just fundamental research in the US is the same between Republicans and Democrats. So whether a Democrat is in office or a Republican is in office, it does not matter because in terms of the engine that keeps the U.S. economy going, you know, the research behind all the technological innovations, this is continually funded no matter who is in office, right? That was genuinely true until Trump took over. Now, when the Make America Great Again folks started coming in, they started attacking specifically universities, and they also started attacking research funding. And this, I think, is very... I don't know how to put it, but I think it's just not necessarily the best strategy to running a country. Like, the US has been number one for so long because it has a brain drain, right? It literally takes the best and brightest people from around the world and shoves them into US research centers. We've been doing this for such a long time, and it's actually like, it's not great for other countries, right? It really isn't. But the reason we've been able to do that is because our research funding is so much higher than every other country. So the best and brightest people, those who want to push the boundary of human knowledge, the researchers, go to the US, right? And the moment we lose that research, we lose technology. When we lose technology, we lose the economy. And it's just a matter until the U.S. is no longer on top with GDP. It's just a matter of time, right? And so Biden actually did a lot of stuff to subsidize more engineering efforts and to subsidize research, and I was quite a fan of a lot of that. I understand that economically speaking, there's a lot of people who were really hit hard by inflation, and to be honest, I understand why people would blame that on Biden. I in my mind, I kind of see that it's not necessarily Biden's fault because the U.S. economy did much better than many other countries in dealing with the post-COVID inflation. But still, he was the one in charge, and a lot of people are seeing a huge grocery bill, and they're not seeing their wages reflect. Like, they're not seeing the ability to pay for those groceries, right? I totally get it. I totally understand why people are upset right now. And so when we're talking about will things be okay, I mean, like, things will stabilize. Things will stabilize. They have to stabilize, right? And in the next 4 years, we're not going to have to deal with Trump anymore. Hopefully we won't be hearing any of this woke stuff anymore. We can just stop talking about that entirely, and we can start moving on to things that actually matter. You know, things that people actually care about. You know, like, I don't know, fixing the economy. For me, climate change is a huge issue. There's a whole bunch of things that we really, really need to focus on right now. We're not, because people are focusing on wokeism. They're focusing on emotions. They're focusing on anger. They're focusing on all this stuff that, to me, does not matter. You know, none of this matters. I don't care if you're wearing a dress. I don't care how you hire people. I don't know. None of this matters to me. What matters is that we're funding research. That's to me the only thing that matters. I don't know. I'm rambling here. Let me go ahead and catch up on chat. I missed a lot. So they're both full-blown capitalists. That's true. Two-party system with winner-takes-all ruling always looks effed up to me. Weighted compromises from coalitions never even have to be considered. Polarization ensues way more easily. Yeah, this is it. Like, look, you can argue that the U.S. is flawed in a lot of ways, and one key way in which it's flawed is that the U.S. Constitution is 250 years old. You know, like, it was made when people didn't even realize that democracies could work, right? And so we've had time. We've had country upon country iterate on democratic systems, and we found better solutions to a lot of things that the founding fathers were trying to do 250 years ago. It makes sense to update the Constitution, but that's not going to happen, right? It's very hard to fix that. You know, and I can talk about issues with, like, for me, I feel like the populist movement that came across in the 1900s in the U.S. really, really, really hurt the U.S. In that there was a time when the U.S. Constitution was written that there was a House of Representatives, which was mainly like by the people and for the people, and then there was a Senate, which was basically voted on by state legislatures. This gave a little bit of wiggle room between the people voting, i.e. the people voting for people in the House, and like what the government could actually do, right? So the people in the House would propose some sort of budget, and the people in the Senate would say, hey, actually, we're not physically able to do that with the current, like, governmental system that we have, right? And basically the point was it was supposed to be this back and forth between what the government's capable of doing and what the people actually want. However, because of the populist movement, which for the record did come with good intentions, senators are now voted in. Which means because they're voted in by popular vote, they're now spending their entire term, 6-year term as senators, re-campaigning for other people to be elected in. And this shouldn't happen, right? But a lot of this is because of just the U.S. political system being old. And the first past the post thing is another one of these things. It's just an old system that needs updating. And it's very hard. It's like legacy code, it's spaghetti code that was written 200 years ago. And just, it's hard to figure out how to fix it, right? I'm on the outsider, so I'm not knowledgeable enough, but I'm happy to learn. I'm also here listening to you guys as well. First past the post is not good. The Republican tax plan makes $5 trillion more debt, makes $500 trillion more debt and increases the debt burden for everyone making under $140K per year. Well, the Democratic tax plan increases debt by just $1.2 trillion, is a lot more balanced. Yeah, this is also kind of true, right? The fact is, the thing that bothers me about this election so much is that Kamala Harris, despite only having a few months to campaign and come up with plans, actually did have clear plans. Meanwhile, Trump, when asked in the debate, didn't have any. He said, well, I've got concepts of a plan. He didn't actually have clear ideas of how to fix any of the issues that the US people had. And actually, this is where I really want chat to help me out. If you guys have concrete evidence, you can point me to a plan that Trump has that is actually beneficial to middle-class Americans, I want to learn. I don't understand why. I just don't understand it. I mean, I'm sitting here, in Barcelona talking about things I don't understand, and I wanted to learn more, right? It's funny because 50 years ago, it was common sense that in political science, two-party first past the post systems ensure stability, unlike proportional system. Now, that's an interesting point. Really interesting point. I want to learn more about that. So why would first past the post systems be more stable than proportional systems? Nerd. Hey, Justin, what's up? The reason to attack education is probably to get sheep that don't question our dear overlords, and probably big companies don't want to see competition popping up. This is just what I see from the outside. Yeah, so the issue with this argument is that I do see Republicans targeting education as a way to end wokeism, but I don't actually feel like there's a huge conspiracy here. I think actually they're actually upset about their kids learning things that they didn't learn, right? They're learning things like their founding fathers weren't necessarily Christians. They were maybe closer to deists, right? They're learning things that are probably true, but do go against their own, what they learned as kids. And this scares them, right? Because it feels like their children are not beating them in education. That's not what I mean. Their children are going down a path that they don't like, right? And when that path goes against their religious principles and stuff like this, I don't think there's a huge conspiracy theory here with the Republican Party. I think it's just pure fear and fear-mongering. But Trump will make sure that the Supreme Court will have conservative supermajority, and that's irreversible for the next 70 years. We won't be able to do anything about it. This is so much worse. Yes, this is true, right? It is almost... Look, we need reform in the Supreme Court. We need term limits. We need something. Everybody knows this, and everybody has always known this. Another one of those, what were the founding fathers thinking? Having term limits be forever, what were they thinking, right? The fact is, that sucks, and it's probably one of the biggest, most devastating things that Trump could do during his term is to elect Supreme Court officials that will just run amok. And I don't know. I don't know what the solution is here, but I do know that, look, things will work out like they have to, And as much as it's frustrating, and as much as I absolutely hate, I know I'm going to hate the next 4 years, there's going to be a way around it, People are going to get fed up with the Supreme Court justices. They're going to change their opinion, or there's going to be reform. And that reform will happen when people get fed up enough. It has to, right? Wi-Fi went out, but we will never have to deal with Supreme Court even after Trump, and he will make Supreme Court so much. Yeah, I know the Supreme Court's a sticky point. By the way, I don't know if you know Justin, but he's actually Primer Learning. Actually, I don't remember the full YouTube channel, but he's a very popular YouTube channel. I'd shout him out. Actually, I don't know if I should be shouting you out in a political stream. Maybe not my best, but anyway, definitely check out the YouTube channel. Just Google Primer YouTube, you'll find it. He's great. I don't like it either, but decision comes down to a billionaire's crazy felon versus a prosecutor. And yeah, look, you're right. It was a crazy. The other crazy thing about this, it's such a good story. Kamala Harris beating Trump, who's a 34-time convicted felon, being a former prosecutor. What a great story, right? What a great story. And yet somehow the people didn't go for it. Like, man, like usually when you tell a good story, like people go for the good stories, right? It's so nice. And yet somehow American people didn't go for it. That just shows how bad things are in the U.S. That people are willing to reelect a 34-time convicted felon that also has had bad economic policies that everyone has known about, who had a failed first term in almost every way, failed his first term, and yet this person is still elected in again, and that is how bad most people in the U.S. see their country. Right? That's what I'm hearing here. I'm not hearing that. I'm not necessarily. I am hearing that, like, okay, things are going to get bad in the next 4 years, but like, how bad must people see the U.S. right now that they're willing to vote him in again? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, they're going against everything. They're going against all of their common interests with the hope that Trump will somehow help them. Right? That says something, right? I don't know exactly what it says, but it says something. People basically pointed the at interwar Germany and said, see, your party system fractured, and in the end, you got Hitler elected. I see. That's a fair point. The voters don't need any proof that he's going to make it better, just that the current government hasn't made anything better, has made it worse, right? That's exactly the problem, right? The fact is, I thought Biden did a pretty good job. I'm not going to say he did a great job. I'm saying he did a pretty good job, given the cards he was dealt. And in my mind, he did a really good job, kind of slowly landing the U.S. economy in such a way that inflation was not crazy. It was really bad in certain places. In the U.S., it was okay. It did much better. Like, I could see it. As a U.S. citizen living in Europe, the exchange rate between U.S. dollar and euro was like the best it's ever been, because the U.S. economy was doing that much better than the European economy at the time. And that's crazy, right? Like, I could physically see it in the conversion between U.S. dollar and euro. Like, I was making more money in the U.S. by like 30% just because of that, And the fact that other people didn't see that means that I don't know. I don't know what it means. There's something missing in this discussion that just didn't really come through. The argument goes, with first past the post parties, and really only two parties will compete for the median voter and thus offer very similar policies. But alas, I don't think politics is about policies anymore. Yeah, I think there's something broken, and I don't know what it is. As a non-U.S. citizen, Trump always looked like someone who invites to dialogue and trade deals, and that never felt bad. Talk more about that. What do you mean it never felt bad? He has no plans for the middle class. He wants to make sure that the people with real power, i.e. the Supreme Court, are in favor of the conservatives for the next 70 years, so our generation is basically doomed. Yeah, look, when you say doomed, keep in mind that the Supreme Court can't do anything if laws are passed, right? If you pass a law saying that abortion is a law of the land, we didn't need Roe versus Wade, right? The fact is the Supreme Court should not be legislating anything. That's not their job, right? And so it's not that we're doomed. It's that we have to be very, very pedantic, which in a sense is what we should have been doing anyway, right? We should have been making sure that the laws are passed and that we're pushing things through Congress. We just haven't been able to do that because in the past 20 years, Congress has been so split that we've been able to do nothing, right? And so in a sense, you could argue that an incredibly conservative Supreme Court would mean we get more laws passed in order to circumvent that court, right? And that's not a bad thing. That's more permanent than Supreme Court rulings or anything. Only good thing about the Supreme Court, some of them are old and better hope they die. Yeah, but we don't want them, in the next 4 years, we don't want them to retire, because then we're just going to get replaced with younger people. I feel like the next 4 years will be better for the whole world. I feel like in the next 4 years, what's going to happen is Europe is going to be the next 12 years. Why next 12 years, actually? Tell me more. Next 12 years. Why? So I feel like the next 4 years are better for the whole world. I actually think that might be true. And here's why. One of the big things that Republicans want is more or less independence from the rest of the world. They don't like being the police of the rest of the world because it means that they have to pay more in the U.S., right? And if the U.S. is struggling, right? Here's the big problem with the U.S. is that, people want social services. They want healthcare. They want like so many things, but we can't pay for that because we're spending so much money on the military for stuff that we shouldn't have to pay for, right? And so one of the big things Trump wants to do is make the other countries pay more for NATO. They want to be more independent. They want to take their hands out of things, right? And in some sense, having a more independent Europe is probably good, right? Probably. I don't know. We don't know, right? But probably it's not bad, right? And so having the world kind of remove its dependence on the US is certainly not a bad thing. And maybe we'll see that it ends up being a good thing in the end. Who knows? It's terrifying seeing that the US take a step down from being a world power, which is exactly what we're saying when we elect Trump in. But in saying that, maybe it's okay. Maybe in saying that, hey, we're taking a step down, we'll let other people take over. Maybe we can create a more equitable world. Maybe this is the way forward. And hopefully some other power doesn't just fill the void, right? I don't know. Let's see. Who knows? We're going to have to see. I'm not sure reform will be possible. Yeah. Good story is just a good story. It doesn't mean it is good. That's true too, right? Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. I'm way back in chat, guys. I have so much to catch up on. I'm gonna catch up here. A story on the right was that Trump would bring them prosperity. Let's see. Well, Harris would bring them death. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, look. The economic policies, like when you actually put them side by side, the tax cuts given by both of them were the same for the middle class. Like the middle class, it didn't matter who was elected in terms of the money that is in their pocket. Yeah. What I feel like is worse is that the general public isn't voting on policy. They're voting based on a team. Exactly. That, and they're voting based on fear, right? And it sucks because Kamala had such good policies in my mind. There were a lot of things that she said that I was like, this is okay. Now, there were things that I disagreed with. Like, to be honest, I don't want to open the Israel-Palestine conflict. I don't want to open it up, but it is a big problem for a lot of people. I'm a first-gen immigrant, or maybe Gen Zero, however you call it. One thing I can tell you, legal and illegal immigrants hate illegal immigrants, so I'm guessing it definitely made communities vote for Trump. This is a guess from my own experience. Yeah, look, I know a lot of immigrants working in the academic system. Most people are immigrants, right? There's a brain drain from outside of the U.S. into the U.S., right? A lot of people are coming from everywhere to be in the U.S. to do research, right? And you see a lot of immigrants. You see a lot of people doing this kind of stuff. And I don't know, like illegal immigrants are, yeah, everyone is doing it legally that I've seen. But there are a few people who have accidentally stayed over their visas. Not that I've seen, but I know this happens. And I think the majority of illegal immigrants are actually people overstaying their visas, not coming in to take jobs or anything like this, right? Let's keep catching up. Isn't sending billions to fund a war bad for the economy? A war that was almost at peace talks? Perhaps you didn't see how many people were making less money. No, this is exactly the point, right? Like what people say they want and what they're actually getting, right? The rhetoric is different than what the policies state. Right. This goes back to a discussion someone else had here where they were saying that people are voting based on a team, not the policies. And that's exactly what's happening. People are saying one thing and doing another. I think most people want to be outside. Like they don't want to be fighting these needless wars. I think most people in the U.S. agree with that. But then the question is, what is a needless war? Should they actually be supporting the side? This person, it's very complicated in the U.S. because of just how much money we're putting into the military. It's insane. Hello, long time no see. Hey, Faceless, what's up? I'm just excited for corporations to consolidate power as the U.S. declines, leading us to the cyberpunk dystopia where we were promised. Jeez, Justin, that is dark. What on earth? But maybe could happen. I don't know. U.S. economy is humming along. Hard to believe we voted to change course. Right. Yep. We're talking about politics, the tribal duality, screaming from both sides and not actually fixing anything issues, right? Great to see you live. Yeah, what's up? Hey, Heptacular Raptor. It's been a while. Let's see. There is something broken is a big one. I think is a big one is faith in democratic institutions. For example, Trump's felonies weigh less because people don't acknowledge them as legit. This is a big problem for me too. Like, I feel like, how do you not? Yeah, this is a core problem. When you start attacking Trump, it's fuel. It's fuel. It's not. It doesn't mean anything because no one on the Trump side believes what you're saying. They think you're lying to their face, right? And so there's no such thing as a fact because every time you tell them a fact, they just say that's not true. And then how do you argue against that? How do you argue against fact, like just feelings? You can't argue against a feeling, right? And I think that's a problem. The only way you can fight feelings is with more feelings. But the problem is that ends up turning into a heated argument. So, like, this is what you need. You need more conversations with people. Like we were having earlier with that previous comment. I was so happy to have someone from a different political perspective here talking to me about what the issues are. Because the more you have conversations like that, the more I learn exactly what the issues are, and the more I can talk to people about what I feel and how I feel like we should be moving. Like, we need to have conversations, not arguments. And it's so hard to do that when people can't even like wear pants when they go to the table. You know what I mean? I never felt bad. We need more trade, less sanctions, so that the economy can actually flow. Money staying at the same place is no progress. Just that. DuckTales taught me that. DuckTales. Oh, good. DuckTales. To be pedantic, SCOTUS gave itself the job of interpreting the law. You're probably right. Yeah. But the Supreme Court gave presidents, now Trump, blanket immunity. Yeah, it does kind of suck, right? NATO countries typically send material that they buy from domestic producers. That's like injecting money in the economy. And what do you mean almost at peace talks? This is actually a fair point. I want not the almost at peace talks part, but the material bought from domestic producers. This is a great thing to talk about because it is true. I have people in my family who are working, their work is funded by the Department of Defense, right? The fact is that in the US, at least, and I think a lot of other countries, a lot of that funding, that defense funding, actually goes into research that ends up becoming really beneficial to the rest of the economy, right? This is what I mean. When you fund research, no matter if it's for weapons or if it's for anything else, that funding of research goes right back into the economy to make more good things. And this is why, way back in the day, 15 years ago, I used to always argue that there really isn't a difference between Republicans and Democrats because they're both going to vote. They're both going to fund research. Maybe some of it comes more from the Department of Defense. Maybe some of it comes more from the Department of Energy. But they're both funding research at equal rates, right? As long as that continues to be true, which I'm not convinced it will, but as long as it does continue to be true, the U.S. is going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay. It's going to be a bit rough in the next few years, but it's going to be okay. Let's see. Do you remember Minx? I don't know this. Yeah, okay. I really don't know so much about this. To be honest, this is I have a huge lack of knowledge and information about what's happening in like the whole Israel-Palestine thing. I kind of like just dropped off the face of the internet when this started happening. If you guys want to talk more about that and teach me about it, I'd love to learn more. But maybe we should stick to programming computers, and maybe we should stick to programming. Computers are not persuaded, except ChatGPT is a computer, and honestly, I feel like I'm pretty persuasive against ChatGPT. I can tell him, I can get them to say anything to me. Let's keep going. How are you so positive, my friends? For the next 4 years, we have Trump, Putin, Xi Jinping, Netanyahu, and Modi being world leaders. All of them are highly conservative and far-right bigots. I think, I've been thinking about it this way. I was so depressed this morning, right, when I heard the news. But do you know how to stoke a fire, right? Like, you have to blow on it, right? You got to get something to get that wind going. It needs oxygen to survive, right? And maybe what we need is we need that power to move forward, to keep that fire going. You know what I mean? And like, maybe that power comes from sheer anger at what's going to happen in the next 4 years, with the hope that there's no world war. As long as there's not World War III in the next 4 years, hopefully there's enough anger that we can just really start pushing for progress. I don't know. Maybe. We're talking about silver linings on what is essentially a giant, large pile of poop that we were just given, right? And so when we're talking about silver linings, maybe that is a silver lining. Maybe it's just going to be so awful, yet so close to collapse, that we're able to just like take it and run with it once it's over. I don't know. This is tough, right? Nobody knows what's going to happen. Yeah, I do know about Project 2025, and I kind of have been not talking about it because I actually don't even know I know some bad points, specifically when we're talking about like transgender care and stuff like this. I know there are some bad things in abortion access and stuff like this, but I know there's so much more than there's so much more to it that I don't know. And this is why I didn't want to talk about it. Remember, Odessa, I do not. Why is plain conservatism so evil for you? It just means to take it slow. So I think what the argument is, I don't mind taking things slow, but there are certain things that we do need direct activity on. And one of those things, for example, is climate change. We do need to really get this figured out in the next few years. And it sucks that Trump, at least in 2016, just did not believe climate change was happening, right? Like, it's insane to me that people can even have that claim after the floods that just happened in Valencia. Like, whatever, okay, fine. But like, there are certain things that we do need direct action on, and it would be really nice if we could start focusing on that, right? Now, I don't mind taking it slow in most other things, but certain things need quick action, and we need to be progressive in those areas, right? And independent Europe is good, but considering the difference in culture within different countries and how inefficient some governments are, it remains to be seen how much Europe will improve. That's actually a good point, right? Like, one thing about the US is that we have different states, right? We have 50 different states in the United States of America. And this is something that a lot of Europeans, I think they know, but they don't really understand the difference, right? It is huge. It's incredible, the difference between Alabama and California. There are some similarities, right? Like, the cities are maybe structured in a very similar way in that, like, you come off the interstate and you hit like a gas station and stuff like this, but they're vastly different, right? And this is actually one side of conservative rhetoric that I agree with. I think that when it comes down to who should hold the most power over its citizens, right? I don't think the federal government should prevail here. I think state governments should, in general, be able to provide what they need to provide for their citizens, considering that those citizens are quite different, right? Now, are they as different as like Greece and Spain? Maybe not quite that different, but they're still different enough that they warrant different governments and different economies to rule over them, right? And so when we start talking about the United States, we have to keep remembering that it really is a federation of different mini countries, right? And we've been trying to solve this issue of what happens, how do we move all these little tiny countries together for so long, and it's very difficult to figure out the solution to that. You know what I mean? It's a tough question. Conservatism means less freedom for women, more religion, and less sexual freedom. Those are very bad outcomes. Conservatism is evil. I think there is a conflation here between conservatism and the alt-right rhetoric that has won over the conservative side of the aisle. Here's my example. My father is what I would consider to be a traditional Republican, okay? I even would consider myself to be a traditional Republican. I used to vote red, or at least I did in my very first election. But again, when Trump took over, I switched, right? Because I could not stand this person. But that to me is the difference, right? I'm totally fine with people being conservative. I'm totally fine with people saying, hey, we should reduce the debt. Hey, you know what we should do? We should maybe keep going with what's working and then slowly change the things. Like, we don't want to rock the boat if we're doing well, right? When we're doing well and the economy is floating and everything's fine, conservatism makes sense. But that's quite different than the alt-right rhetoric that has been winning over recently. The anti-trans stuff, the misogynistic stuff, like all of this stuff, like the anti-immigration stuff. Admittedly, there is a border crisis, and I'm not saying that's not happening, but a lot of that has bled its way into more racist sentiments. All of this is stuff I don't agree with. And that has all been tied to the conservative movement, whether they like it or not. And because all of this gross stuff has been tied to, weird stuff, I guess I should say, has been tied to the conservative movement, now people conflate conservatism with alt-right. I do think they're different, right? And so this is why, like, I understand why my dad voted for Trump, because he thinks the conservative party from 15 years ago still exists, but it doesn't. It's completely different now. And if you voted Republican because you thought that they were still the civil people, I don't know what to tell you. They're completely different than what they used to be, right? People nowadays don't even want to believe in science and call it conspiracy. That's the problem I have with the conservative side now. This was not true 15 years ago. This is classic talking piece past each other. You're both right on different definitions of the word. Right. I think that's exactly what I was trying to say. Trump additionally has the popular vote, the Senate, and the Supreme Court. He is in an excellent position to make real changes. Consequently, J.D. Vance is an excellent position to be his 2-term legacy. I think you'll hate the next 12 years. Okay, I understand that. I do want to know, though. Please, please, please stay here. I really appreciate you being here. What is he going to do? I know 2025, but Trump says he's not associated with 2025. So what are his actual positions? Like, what is his plan? This is what I haven't heard, and I want to know more about. What is his plan moving forward in the next 4 years, potentially 12 years? I personally don't find Vance to be a compelling president, and I feel like, to be honest, Trump is so old and he has had so much trouble speaking in the past 4 years. I suspect he might step down even before his 4 years are up, and so Vance might be up even before the 4 years are out. But regardless, I do not suspect Vance can win an election off of simply Trump momentum. just because he's a completely different person and he speaks completely differently and he doesn't have the charisma of Trump. That said, I very, very, very much want to know, what is Trump going to do, right? Going slow isn't bad. Conserving things that need change is. Yeah, I agree with that statement. I remember saying, facts don't care about your feelings. We need to change it now to facts don't matter, just your feelings. Well, this is the thing, right? Like, that's the conservative movement right now. Right now, the alt-right movement does not care about facts. They only care about feelings. And so when I had a conversation with my father the other day, I was talking, I said, well, my mom was there too. I was like, we talked about the statistic that women tend to lean left now, whereas men tend to lean right in a much greater way than they used to. And they said, well, this is because the left caters to feelings. And I said, I just strictly don't believe that to be true. The left has a lot of clear policy agendas that they're trying to push, dealing with climate change, dealing with like police reform, dealing with so many things that I feel do actually need to be focused on. Meanwhile, the right is really just focusing on wokeism. And I just haven't seen the policies that the right is actually trying to push. And maybe they don't have to push anything because they're conservative. That's totally fine. But I don't know what they're pushing, right? Whereas I do know the policies on the left. And so when we're talking about facts don't care about your feelings, like, this is it. If you actually do genuinely believe that, then why is your entire policy about feelings, right? Too much competition, not enough cooperation. Will he be behind bars when he gets the keys to the White House? Yeah, I not want to talk about the felonies. I hope people exercise their power and demand real positive changes. This is the best we can hope for, right? What if the next 4 years are actually good and anger goes away? Wouldn't that be a good outcome? Yeah, 100%. If in the next 4 years, Trump does something. Like, let's say in the next 4 years, Trump says something like, yo, climate change, it's destroying our country. Let's fix that. I'd be like, yo, Trump, you're my man. If he comes in and he says, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I think what we need to do is we need to, I don't know, like there's 100 different things he could say, right? If he says, you know what, Affordable Care Act, that was actually not so bad. We should probably update it though, because there's a whole bunch of issues with it and we need to fix these things. Like if he starts tackling things that like actually matter and will actually change people's lives for the better, especially generations to come, I don't care if it's Trump. I genuinely hate the guy based on his rhetoric. But if he says certain things and he pushes positive policy forward, it is a positive outcome. As much as I hate it, as much as I hate that it's coming from Trump's mouth, if he pushes positive policy, it's a positive outcome, right? I hate that, but that is what it is, you know? What if it's the complete opposite than what you think? We are likely going back to riots on the streets, same as last time. Very likely, unfortunately, that is very likely. Minx 1 and 2 are reference to Ukraine. They were agreements about how to deal with the whole crime Donbass situation. My point was the narrative of we only need peace talks is kind of stupid because we had talks to no end, but Russian regime still chose to go to war. That's also a fair statement, right? Like, facts don't care about your feelings, right? So no matter what agreement you have down on paper, it doesn't matter if your overlord is going to just not read the paper. You know what I mean? I'm almost catching up on chat. I think it will be anger and it will take a turn, but why hope for anger and revolution? That's not peaceful mindset. No. Okay, that's a fair point. In some sense, what I was saying before was I was arguing that maybe people will be angry enough that we can, get that flame going. But maybe you're right. Maybe I should not be hoping for anger. I should be hoping that people accept where we are and they do the researcher thing. They say, yo, this is where we're at. This is what we have to do. Keep our head down and go. That would actually be the best solution. If everyone just agrees that these are problems we need to solve, they set a plan and they go for it, right? One of my biggest problems with Trump is that he will not make people less mad. It's possible to me, other things will be good, but it seems pretty unlikely. It seems pretty likely that he'll keep making people mad. Yeah, that's true. That's his whole shtick, right? Obviously, we're not hoping for anger, but that's what the signs lead to. That's what Trump has promised to do. Bad things, right? Revolution probably will not happen. There was no counter-revolution in most dictatorships before many years. California could be its own country. Actually, that's surprising, right? California has the economy. If California was split off from the rest of the United States, it would be the 5th largest economy in the world. This is why whenever people say, oh, California is a failed state, it's like, but how has it failed? It's literally the American dream right there. It's like, you can't cut California off. It's huge. It's giant. It's the U.S. economy. When people think of America, they think of New York and they think of California. That's it. Anything in between those two states, maybe Texas, that's not what they think of, right? There's nothing in Texas. Texas is big, right? But New York City, California, everything in the middle there doesn't really matter. For most people thinking about the U.S., they don't think about those as the pictures of the United States. Okay, again, maybe Texas if they think about fat people, but like this is not what I'm trying to say is it's when people start saying that California is a failed state, I want to know by what metric, and why, right? Oligarchs one, it's so corrupt. Yeah, feel free to skip this. But speaking of transgender issues, I think just allowing surgeries, etc., is not solving the issue. It's just using painkiller to treat the symptom and not heal. I want to, guys, hey, it's election day. I lost. That's fine. I don't mind. I want to talk about trans issues. What's the problem with trans people? So there is nowhere in the world where you are able to have a trans surgery before the age of 18 without like a huge amount of consent, right? No one is sitting here and cutting off. Okay, what I'm saying is the best you can do before 18 and almost everywhere in the world, including everywhere in the United States, is puberty blockers before the age of 18, which to me is fine. I don't see an issue with this. And I also don't see an issue with adults transitioning. And I think most people also don't see an issue with adults transitioning. It's just so, what is I guess I don't understand the panic, because it seems like the laws already reflect where people are morally. I think most people just don't think it's okay to force people, or do not feel it's okay to like transition before the age of 18, but after 18, it's fine. Right? And as long as you take puberty blockers as a trans individual, and you do your second puberty after the age of 18 into the gender you want, to be honest, you're going to pass pretty well. And so, sure, there are some people who would love to transition before the age of 16, and they're, to be honest, not in the best mental state because of gender dysphoria. And so it would be nice potentially to help solve this issue a little bit. But I don't actually understand the fundamental issue, because I think most conservatives that I've talked to actually agree with me when I say, hey, if you go up to a conservative person and you say, hey, here's my opinion on the trans issue, and say the trans issue, because that's what they say. I believe that minors should not be having operations, and I believe that if you want to transition after the age of 18, it's up to you to do so. If you say that, I think 90% of Republicans, maybe not 90, but 70% of Republicans would probably say, sure, fine, right? And so I think this is another one of those things where that is what the policy currently says in most places. And it's weird to me that people are drawing this up, I don't. So when you say it's a Band-Aid solution, allowing surgeries, what's the core problem? Because to me, the problem is like such, I don't know, I don't get it. I don't understand where the issue is. The difference between fiscal conservatism and social conservatism. The GOP is very socially conservative, but I'm not sure about fiscal conservatism. Yes, that I think is exactly my problem. 15 years ago, I think it had both definitions, both fiscal and social conservative. Now, it is no longer fiscally conservative. I don't think you can currently claim that the Republican Party, as it stands right now, is fiscally conservative, which is what I used to agree with. And social conservatism is quite weird in the Republican Party right now, and that has become like very just angry at everything, and it's not, I can't support it because of that anger. And therefore painkillers legal. Trans people are real, dude. They're not mentally ill. Wait, maybe I misread this. The sad thing is the oligarchs would have won with the Democrats as well. Maybe not as much, but it feels like the game's rigged to begin with. It's definitely rigged. Like, there's no question about that. I'm talking about people who regret decisions. They are silenced and bullied. This is actually... Okay, I want to talk about this. This is a very, very important thing to talk about. So I'll be honest. Look... I'm not necessarily like the most cis guy here. I'm not going to say I'm not cis, but I'm going to say that maybe like in terms of people who sometimes play a female VTuber online in a secret channel, like that's me. Like I have a very fluid definition of gender, right? And so in a sense, I'm in most trans spaces, not all trans spaces, but I'm in some. And it is true that a lot of people who are detransitioning, their opinions they're not silenced, but they're not listened to as well as people who transition and we're happy with it, right? And part of the reason is that statistically detransitioners, people who who decided to go back against their time being transgender, like changing their gender, it's a very small fraction of a very small group, right? So trans people is like 1%. People who decide to act on being trans, like they decide to take HRT, is even smaller there. I don't know what the number is, but I think it's less than 1%. And the people who detransition there is also very small. It's like, like there are more people who regret having knee surgery, which is objectively a good thing to do, than there are people who, dislike taking HRT, right? And even the people who do detransition, most of them agree that doing so was good for their mental state. It allowed for them to explore something that has been bothering them their entire life. And so we're really talking about a very small group of people. And that's for that small group of people. It is totally true that they are not listened to as much as the rest of the trans community within trans spaces. But outside of trans spaces, their voices are amplified to the extent that that like people who are not in these trans spaces believe that everyone detransitions and everyone hates transitioning. But that's simply not true. The majority of people who transition are happy with the fact that they transition and only detransition due to social issues, right? And they're upset not necessarily at the fact that they transitioned, but at the fact that their transition was maybe not good enough for them to fully pass. And there's a whole bunch of issues with their transition that led them to detransition. And they probably would have been happy if they were just born as a cis male or female in the opposite sex, right? And so this is one of those things where I feel like it's like there's a lot of smoke but no fire, and I think that's what I've been having an issue with a lot of Republican rhetoric. I will shut up now. I am a minority here, and I feel like I'm starting to flame wars I don't want, while just expressing my opinion like anyone else. Sorry for taking this much time. No, hey, again, I have to be honest. I appreciate you being here. Look, I really, really, really appreciate you being here. The way I see it, the more conversations we have like this, where, and admittedly, look, I'm a streamer, right? I can only talk to you guys, right? Because this isn't a discussion back and forth. You're texting to me and I'm responding back like 5 minutes later, right? But I really, really like these discussions where people are bringing up points. I might not necessarily have the right answer, but I can share what my opinion is, and hopefully it leads to greater discussion, right? Because these are things that I think should be talked about. It shouldn't be like, I don't, it is not right for me to shut somebody down who has an opinion, because I think all opinions are valid in a sense, as long as you're not acting on them in such a way that you're taking away other people's rights. That's generally my belief. As long as if you have an opinion, like that's incredibly racist, to be honest, okay, that's fine. It sucks. But as long as you're not actively acting on that opinion, for the record, I'm not saying you have like a transphobic opinion. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is, if you have an opinion in your head, anyone, just randomly, that is incredibly racist, that sucks. But as long as you aren't acting on that, to be honest, I can't do anything about that, right? Like, except talk and try to just kind of work my way around that. Yeah, so let's keep talking. John Stuart Mill got it right. We need both conservatism and progressive forces and an ongoing constructive conflict. I think democratic societies largely lost their ability to have constructive conflict, and honestly, both sides clearly fail at this. Personally, I'm disappointed by the left for not coming up with policies that have real positive impact on the average guy. Yeah, so, but what policies could they have proposed that would have had a positive impact on the average guy? Because they had a tax plan that was equivalent to Trump's tax plan. In fact, offered more benefit for the average middle-class citizen. They were actively combating climate change, which is a huge issue for the youth. Even if you don't believe that climate change is happening, there are a huge number of people who really, really, really do care about this. Right? Are not having kids because they're afraid of what life is going to be like in 50 years for those children, right? And that's something that does impact. I would argue the average guy does care about this. They did the CHIPS Act with Biden in there in order to bring more engineering jobs to the U.S. Like they're actively transitioning from a lot of old fossil fuels to modern renewable resources, and in doing so, they're providing a huge number of jobs for people who didn't have jobs before. All of these things seem like things that are really having real positive impact on the average guy, and so I'm trying to figure out what could they have done to have done better here. You know what I mean? Like, ignoring the fact that it's actually addressing the cause and not just treating symptoms. Painkillers are a good thing and not mutually exclusive with treatment and causes. I think I may have lost the plot there a bit. Bad Guys 1, you can't heal when society wants you dead, and that's society's fault. That would be like making painkillers illegal and having pain treatment be only psychological, if any. Yeah. To be honest, this is the core problem, right? Like one of the core problems with my issue with the social movement on the Republican side, literally every time I hear conservatives talk, I just hear anger directed usually at trans people. And I'm like, but why are you so mad? Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand the anger here. It's just some person who is dealing with a lot of psychological issues that can be fixed by taking hormones of the opposing gender or of their actual gender. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't seem like a problem to me. Like, okay, so what if they grow breasts and, you know, their penis shrinks a little bit? Okay. So what if they want to wear dresses? Okay. How does this affect me as an average guy? Like, or an average Joe? How does this affect me? It doesn't. Not in any way. And what do you think will be the cure? People who think that they don't have the right gender, and the cure would be to make them feel that they are in the right gender, like cutting away homosexuality, make all gay people straight. Would that be a cure for the? Oh, okay. So actually, this is a good point. It's a conflation between two ideas. A conflation between LGB and T groups, right? Being that lesbian, gay, and bi groups are somehow also trans. They're in the same flag, right? Because they're all kind of diversity in different areas. But the thing that makes you gay is quite different than the thing that gives you gender dysphoria and causes you to feel like you're in the wrong body. I can tell you, as someone who does suffer from gender dysphoria a lot, it's debilitating. And maybe I shouldn't have said that because now my cards have come clean. But like when it comes down to it, some days are just awful. You wake up and like you've had dreams of yourself in some body that you don't have, and it's different than dysmorphia, because dysmorphia is like, oh, I as a guy don't feel like my body is matching what I want it to look like. But you could do things to make it match that thing, right? Like you could go to the gym, you could get a six pack. There's so many things I could do as a guy to make myself look more masculine. But fundamentally, that's not what my brain wants. And fundamentally, there's like issues that you'll have. Like you have like phantom pains of like in certain regions of your body. Maybe I'm TMI here, but the point is like this is a huge issue for people who do suffer from gender dysphoria, and it's something that they have to deal with their entire life. And there's a solution, and the solution is HRT. It fixes them. It makes them normal, and they've been wanting to be normal their entire life. And so it's not just painkillers exactly. It's literally something that saves lives, because they're sitting here with acute emotional distress, mental distress for a majority of their life, and there's a magic pill that fixes it. Does it make them exactly a woman, make them exactly a man? Not exactly, right? It does the best it can. But after you've already gone through puberty, there's certain things that can't fix, that it can't change, right? But the fact is that, like, when it comes down to it, this is quite different than, like, homosexuality. Like, you could be a guy and just like guys. That's fine. That doesn't mean you're trans, right? This has nothing to do with transness. They're completely different, right? And so the easy solution is just to say, screw it. It doesn't matter to me if trans people are trans. It doesn't matter to me if gay people are gay. Just let them live. Give them the magic pill that makes their brain happy. Let them live their lives and be normal. And don't worry about it. That's, in my mind, the easiest solution. I don't think you were flamed, but maybe you should try and think about the arguments you were confronted with instead of ignoring them. To be honest, I don't think even there were too many arguments here. And I do apologize because I think I missed this in chat. But I do really appreciate the conversation. I think that his support and power are enough for the mass deportation of illegals. I think Musk might really reduce government. I think that he will stop the war in Ukraine, even though it will gift half the country to Russia. Tariffs are also possible with China. Destroying wokeism is enough, in my opinion, which doesn't require him to do anything. Good. This is a good opinion to have because I don't understand it at all and I want to learn more. So, mass deportations of illegals. The majority of the illegals, from my understanding, are here because they overstayed their visas. They live in like Pennsylvania, New York. There are a lot in Texas. There is a border crisis going on, but it's not like the majority of illegal immigrants are just overstaying visas and they came here totally legally to begin with. From my understanding, this could have changed. And if it did change, I want to learn more and I want some links to that. Links are totally, you can link in chat, I think. About Musk, I genuinely hate the guy. Musk has done absolutely nothing to advance society and has actually led to a lot of things. He's done a lot of stuff that is ultimately going to be bad in the long term. Like, for example, he polluted low Earth orbit with the Starlink satellites, which is not good to do when Kessler syndrome is knocking at your door. There's a lot, I don't know, it's just, I don't trust Musk as a person, and I don't think he's going to do very well with government, and I don't think we should necessarily be reducing government, because in terms of people who do, there's a myth in conservative ideology that says that government is necessarily bad, because there's a lot of libertarians that also identify as fiscally conservative, and so they are somehow tied to the conservative movement. But in my mind, and again, I could be totally wrong here, in my mind, it's, how do I put this? The inefficiencies in government are about equal to the inefficiencies in the private sector, but the core problem is that the government can't leave. And that's a big deal, right? Recently, my core problem with Musk is that he's someone who's basically stolen a lot of money from the US government that should have gone to NASA, right? NASA is something in the US that cannot leave the US. It's something that everybody in the US and even outside of the US universally agrees was a good thing to fund, right? And what ended up happening recently is a lot of that money that was going to go to NASA went to SpaceX, right? And I guess it's okay to have a corporation that is competing with NASA, because competition is always good. But what's not okay is that SpaceX could move to Ireland next year. And all that money that we put into SpaceX now no longer belongs to us. It now belongs to Ireland. You know what I mean? Because it's a company. They do what's in the company's best interest, right? And so there are certainly things that I feel like we should be funding from the U.S. taxpayer specifically to be in the U.S., right? And so I don't think necessarily reducing the government is a good thing. I think we should be cautious about what we do decide to reduce and the way in which we decide to use that funding. Stopping the war in Ukraine, I think everyone is for. I just think it's sad that Trump might let the bad guys win, because there is a lot of moral justification here. Tariffs are also possible with China. Yeah, the problem with tariffs is that I don't think Trump knows how they work. Again, it means that our economy gets worse, and the hope is that by making our economy worse, we get more competition in the U.S. so that people are more likely to buy U.S. goods. So it means we're going to pay more in the short term, but hopefully long term is better. We'll see how that plays out. Just destroying wokeism is enough, in my opinion, which doesn't require him to do anything, but I also don't know what wokeism means. I'm not flamed. Chat is flaming. Conversion therapy is like breaking your arm to calm down wrist pain. Conversion therapy just doesn't work. It just doesn't. We have plenty of evidence to support that. No one is flaming here. You are refusing to hear the arguments against your views. I didn't actually hear the arguments against the views. I might have missed something here. It doesn't work at all. It makes things worse. Chat seems very peaceful here. Did I miss the conversion therapy argument? I must have missed something here. It makes things worse. Chat seems very peaceful here to me. This is why minorities should be protected, because we desperately need to be able to talk beyond our echo chambers. I'm not the streamer, but I really think you should not feel sorry for engaging in a constructive way. Yeah, for the record, I 100% agree with this statement. I really, really, really do feel that everyone should have a voice. Even if I don't agree with the opinion, it is important to get those opinions out there, talk about them, and rationalize them. Think about them. Why do we believe these things, right? I'm betting that in the next 4 years, nothing will change. Everything will remain the same. Everyone will go to their favorite shows, comedies, etc. Show is over, back to the reality. Maybe. And in fact, that is a positive outcome for people to stop caring about politics after literally, 12 years? Okay, 2016, 8 years of just having it thrown in your face. I think most people would just be happy to sleep for a bit, right? I think that was the best thing about Biden's presidency, was just there was a year in there after Trump lost. Okay, maybe not even a year. There was like 2022 when like people just kind of relaxed for a bit. They were like, hey, Biden's doing okay. The economy's kind of doing okay. All things considered, things are fine. We're kind of trending upwards. There was some positivity. And then Trump announced presidency again, candidacy again, and things just started going south. And what are you going to do? Like, everything's so negative, and negativity draws clicks. I get that, but I don't understand why puberty blockers are good, but cigarettes, alcohol, and driving is bad. It's just I don't understand that. The core issue is that puberty blockers are not addictive, right? This is actually a good point, right? Cigarettes, alcohol, driving. So the core issue is the following, right? I don't know your gender at all, and I don't think we necessarily need to talk about that. But what I will say is the following. If you have depression, anxiety, ADHD, any other mental issue, you can solve these issues as a kid. You can get anxiety medication. You can get medication for ADHD, stuff that universally makes your life better. That's quite different than alcohol. That's quite different than cigarettes. These are not addictive things. The medication is generally a pill that will make your life 100% better. So why are we, it's medicine. There's nothing negative about puberty blockers. It's a general net positive. And not only is a net positive, it is a win. Like, it is a flat out, like, make your life better overnight situation for these people. And so why wouldn't we just give it to them? Right? This isn't like, there's no negative side effects outside of maybe you're missing your first puberty, which ultimately means if you're a guy, you'll be a little bit shorter. And if you're a girl, you will, to be honest, there aren't very many negative side effects for that side. But it just means that you might just be a little bit shorter. That's the negative side effect for puberty blockers, really. People say your bone density is different, but that will change once you get on your actual hormones. Puberty blockers are used on cisgender children that have premature puberty. Oh yeah, people are already doing that. You don't have to understand that, but puberty blockers are the best agreed medical treatment, and the science community in large agrees with it. Science also agrees with the fact that cigarettes and drunk driving is bad. It's just facts, not feelings. That is not, because that is literally the cure for eating hormone-filled processed food, right? That is not. I don't understand that point. I'm going to skip it, but tell me more. If somebody's suffering from a mental problem where they are thinking they're paraplegic and wanting to cut off their legs, you're saying that the best help we can get them is cutting their legs off. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I do understand this point, right? Because a lot of people don't. I think being trans is something that's very difficult to describe to people if you're not actually trans, because they see it as someone who's like either cutting their chest or their junk off. That's what they see it as. It's more like you're born with a tumor, right? That's more what it's like. You're born with a tumor that you can easily remove and would make your life 100% better. It has no utility for you. It's not like legs. You need legs, but you don't need your genitals. Like you don't need them, right? Like this isn't something that it's going to make your life better if you get rid of them. So just get rid of them, right? It's optional, right? And so, I mean, also for people who are like have a religious qualm against this, just for the record, it does say in the Bible, there's a verse in the Bible where Jesus talks about, people who do not need romantic relationships. And in the same verse, he talks about eunuchs, people who have, cut off their stuff to essentially better fit into the kingdom of heaven. Like it helps them feel more normal. He says eunuchs are great. So people who are mutilating themselves to better fit into society are fine. And so if there's like a religious issue against this, which I think a lot of people have, just keep in mind that at least with the Christian Bible, trans people are 100% A-okay. Like at least with eunuchs, which are, old school trans people essentially doing similar operations. So I don't really have, I don't know. I don't know where this moral panic comes in exactly. Plus we have proof of their efficacy on gender dysphoria and premature puberty. Well, we have proof of the harm that cigarettes. Oh, this is the other thing with puberty blockers, right? People say, right? So let's say you have gender dysphoria. Right? You have gender dysphoria because your gender does not match what's in your head, right? So as a guy, you feel you're born with male anatomy, but it does not match, right? This means that every single interaction you have, you're second guessing because your brain wants to do one thing that is feminine, but actually you have to do the masculine thing, right? And it causes a huge, like, there's a reason there's such a huge overlap between autistic people and transgender individuals. The nice thing about puberty blockers is you don't go through that normal puberty. You don't grow a beard. You don't get broad shoulders. You don't grow tall. So all of these things that cause you to cause you stress, you don't have them anymore with puberty blockers. And so it's genuinely like, people think that the second puberty is the destructive one for trans people, right? Because they think the first puberty was right because I transitioned into a guy when I was a kid. But the second puberty, if I were to transition into a woman, is not okay, right? But that's not how it is at all. The first puberty is the one that was wrong, right? Because in my brain, again, I'm speaking as if it were me, but in the trans person's brain, they would like to be the opposite gender, right? And so that the first issue, the first transition, the first puberty is the issue, and not the transition one, right? Anyway, we're kind of, yeah, this is tough. People who detransition mostly do so because of outside pressure, not regret. I'm heading out. Yes, sorry, Justin. We were just chatting about random stuff. Good to see you this morning, and good on you for being willing to talk it through with people on stream. I don't think I could do it. Hey, I really appreciate everyone's conversation here. It's not, but there are people like me. It's not, but there are people like this, so what do you do? So I guess in the people who want their legs cut off, like, this is actually a good question, right? What do you do in that case? It's similar to the people who have phantom pains in their hands, right? Like, let's say you have one hand cut off and you have phantom pain that's like, this is the pain where you feel this hand, but it's not actually there because it's been cut off. What do you do in that case? I don't know. It's very difficult, and I don't know the solution to that, but we do have a solution for trans people. And that's it. See ya, bye-bye. How come PyCharm is popular since when you need the performance when doing some algorithm or say AI? I don't know, man. To be honest, I don't use IDEs. I don't use IDEs. I don't know the solution here. Python. Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't use Python too much either, but Python is an AI powerhouse. I'm so far behind on chat, guys. I'm not going to catch up. Let's cool down with a bit of MATLAB talk. Oh, no. I'm not racist or against trans people. I'm a software engineer that is professionally sick of toxic positivity, where managers think even the stupidest projects will bring a lot of money. Okay, that's a fair point. That's totally fair. If there are people in your life that are causing you to, like, toxic positivity is a huge issue, I think, among trans spaces, right? Like, how do I put this? It's a hard thing because these people are incredibly emotionally vulnerable, right? And so you want to be supportive in the best way possible, and it's sometimes very difficult to be supportive and also explain to them like what the problems are. Like sometimes if you're a trans woman and you're not passing, that is actually a huge issue. Like you could be beat up just for existing, right? And so you have to know that you don't pass. And by pass, I mean you are not presenting as a woman in a way that people would typically consider to be a woman. On the other hand, if you're literally like unable to move that day because of gender dysphoria, you might need just a pickup, right? And people who are outside of this sphere don't really understand how to be positive and also be constructive at the same time. It's a very difficult thing to do. And so the positivity ends up becoming maybe toxic. I don't know the exact word, but it ends up becoming overly positive for no reason. And I mentioned trans spaces, but I think in general, I can understand this happening everywhere. People are afraid to hurt other people's feelings. And as such, they end up maybe saying things that are not necessarily the best for anyone, right? This happens, There are people like that, but effective treatment and those people and trans people are completely opposite. Let's see. That's not how trans people work. All those headlines you hear about school kids suddenly wanting to become a cat were highly exaggerated and false. Oh, speaking of which, that cat one is super sad. It's the saddest story I've ever heard in my life. It made me so angry. And usually I try not to get angry when I read stuff, but let's talk about the cat story. So there was a while ago, there was a story that came out that people are putting litter boxes into classrooms because children are identifying as cats, right? That made its way across conservative media, and then people fact-checked it. And the reason the litter box existed was not because people were identifying as cats. It was because of active shooter drills. Basically, in the case that there is an active shooter, and that shooter is around the school for a period of time, some people might have to go to the bathroom, and for a little bit of like sanitariness, just to be a little bit safe, they have a litter box in the back of the room in the case that you have to pee, as a case they have to pee while the active shooter is coming on. I don't think you guys, I've talked about gender dysphoria a lot actually on stream. I don't think it's coming out at all. I've just mentioned it before. Yep, I'm gonna skim some of this. Has to suck. I saw the TV Glow for the first time and got a sense of the pain. Yeah, it's really difficult to describe to people who don't have it. And actually not all trans people have gender dysphoria. It's just, and not all, but it is indicative if you do have it, you are probably at least on the trans spectrum, right? Yeah, anyway, what is wokeism? No closet behind. So I used to actually stream from a closet, just for the record. Has bought himself the label of genius from the money that he got from his slave owner father and the money he conned from the U.S. government to give him. To be fair, that is kind of accurate. I'll come clean. I judge people by their opinion on Musk. Yeah, to be honest, I don't have a positive opinion on the guy. What I will say is the following though. Musk generally has done certain things that are positive. The popularization of EVs is generally good. I would say it's not quite as good as people believe it to be, in that there are a lot of negative side effects to EVs that people don't typically talk about in terms of like the upkeep of roads and stuff like that. But for the most part, generally positive that people are more likely to buy EVs because of Musk. Everything else he did is kind of not great. I can't think of anything else he did that was actually good. Counter argument to it doesn't affect me is when children are deciding permanent changes to their body. The thing is, puberty blockers are not permanent, in that you can just go through the normal puberty if you decide not to transition, and no one is allowing for that transition to happen before 18, except with like everyone okaying it, parents, therapists. Like it takes years to get that okay, right? And so it doesn't affect me when children are involved. Again, the current law states that children are not allowed to take HRT. Like they do puberty blockers, which is quite different. Again, there are basically no negative side effects except for the height thing. That's it. That's the only negative side effect. And it doesn't really even negatively affect height that much because 18 is not actually so old that you're losing the effect of the original puberty, right? So it's I don't know, like the law currently states right now that we are not permitting children to do permanent changes to their body. That is what the current law is. Musk is a Russian asset. I do maybe agree with that. Did Argentina make progress by making government smaller? I haven't followed the situation in a while, but did anyone? Tell me more. I want to learn more. Hasn't poverty gone way up in Argentina following the election? It's a very thoughtful decision involving a lot of adult supervision, and back and forth with highly qualified doctors. Why won't there be riots on the streets again, just like last time he was in office? All the chaos will destroy us. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, more division sucks. I think medication is given away too easily. If I come to a therapist, I might have been diagnosed with depression, but I'm not depressed. I just have school, work, economy, social issues, family issues, etc. Related to puberty blockers, ADHD, and depression. Okay, this is actually a good point. The question is, at what point should you medicate depression meds? Let's say depression. Let's not talk about gender stuff. Depression. Why? When do you get depression medication? You need a diagnosis not from a psychologist, but a psychiatrist, which is someone who actually does the dosing for medication and stuff like this. That usually comes after discussions with a psychologist, and usually doesn't come after the first session. Now, are there bad psychiatrists out there who are giving you medicine when you were not necessarily officially diagnosed with depression? I'm sure that does happen. And here in Spain, if you're an adult, you can just go up and get HRT. I don't have to. I could just walk up there to my local public health, building, and just say, "Yo, I want to give me some hormones." And they'd be like, "Yo, dog, sure, no problem." I could do that if I wanted to. And there are benefits and drawbacks to that. But again, that's only as an adult. As a kid, that's remarkably different, right? And it comes down to the fact that, in general, all of the effects there are very few lasting effects to HRT, right? If I were to take HRT, the only lasting effect that I would have if I were to go off of HRT in, let's say, a year, is that I would probably grow breasts. That's it. If I were a girl and if I were a trans man transitioning into a man and I were to take HRT, I would have a deeper voice. I might grow some body hair. But generally, if I go back to estrogen, if I were a girl, or I go back to testosterone, if I was a guy, I'm back to where I was. Might need some laser surgery to get rid of the hair. Might need some voice training to get my voice back up. Might need surgery to get rid of the breast tissue. There might be some stuff I have to do, but it is not destructive, right? Surgeries are destructive, but HRT is not as destructive as people make it out to be. I had meant to leave, but I stayed. I'm surprised you're so negative about SpaceX. Fair enough on the government funding potentially going abroad, but SpaceX does seem to making a large positive difference on the advancement of rocketry, no? Similar with Tesla, helping spur more manufacturing, trying harder on electric cars. Musk is Omega cringe on social media and politics, IMO, but those SpaceX and Tesla seem good to me, but perhaps I'm missing something. Actually, 100% agreed. I might actually be missing something in terms of SpaceX. For me, the reason I don't like SpaceX is because there was a government-funded body that was doing what SpaceX was supposed to do. And so to take the funding and give it to some third company is weird to me. I don't know why we're doing that. It's not necessarily that Tesla, 100%, I think that was great. I don't like the fact that he kind of bullied his way to being the face of Tesla. But ultimately, I think that's a net good. SpaceX, I don't know yet if it's a net good, because I really feel like I wish NASA had done this, right? And so maybe it's a net good. I don't know. It's murky there. But in general, I don't like the Neuralink stuff. I think Neuralink stuff is not very good. I'm actually kind of terrified of what people think that is and what it actually is. They're completely different objects. Starfleet, what's it called? The internet in the sky thing that he did. I don't remember what it's called, but that's not great because it really pollutes low Earth orbit, which is not great when you have Kessler syndrome happening. I don't know. It's just a lot of stuff that SpaceX is very, very gray. But Tesla, I'd say net positive. Everything else net negative. So you're right. I should have maybe mentioned SpaceX as a middle ground. Remind me, what was that towards the end of 4 years? It's hard to follow up the years. Argentina's inflation is now running at more than 230% annually, is among the worst in the world, from AP News article in September. It was when he was in office. Let's see. Hate Musk or not, but that's not true. In 2022 tweet, Elon Musk responded to speculation about his family, wealth, and upbringing. He acknowledged that while his father had a successful electrical and mechanical engineering business for several decades, he never inherited any wealth or received any significant financial gifts. Musk borrowed $28,000 from his moderately wealthy father to fund Zip2. To be honest, I was not making the argument that he was. Maybe I agreed with the argument that he'd gotten a lot of money from his dad, and I think that is maybe a bit of a conspiracy theory. I can only judge him as he is now, and as he is now, I do not appreciate most of the work he has done, and I feel like I just feel like he's not someone I want to see anywhere in a position of power, and it's unfortunate that he has the power that he has. I will say that. Tell me why this time around there won't be riots in the streets. At 28K exactly, mind-blowing wealth. Let's see. As well as Argentina's poverty rate jumped from almost 42% to 53%. Aren't there 6 genders in the Jewish Bible? There could be, I don't know. Probably just devil's advocate, but if we hypothetically were to find lobotomy a way of curing depression and gender dysphoria, not dysmorphia, those are 2 different things, but that surgery would be better than gender plastic surgery. So for the record, the number of trans people who are doing plastic surgery is small. There actually are not too many people who do that. People do it, right? But for the most part, most trans people just take the hormones, right? Because that does most of the body sculpting that you want. The plastic surgery only comes if they need additional help. And for bottom surgery for trans women, that typically happens and is actually necessary in some cases. But for the most part, like HRT is enough for most trans people. So it's not like people are doing plastic surgery. About the lobotomy argument, I mean, we tried lobotomy for a long time, right? And it didn't work. It's just not... If somehow it was found as a way of curing depression, then I suppose, yeah, maybe I'd agree with it. Let's say it's not lobotomy. Let's say it's like a small incision somewhere else in the brain, and this could somehow fix gender dysphoria. To be honest, I think most trans people would do that, right? If you could just get rid of gender dysphoria without transitioning, I think most trans people would press that button. They say, yes, I would take that. Because transitioning is hard, right? And I certainly, as someone, I would love to say that, you know, like, I would love to just get rid of it. I just like press a button. I don't care about transitioning. My brain wants me to, but I know theoretically, press the button, done. I don't have to deal with it anymore, right? They ultimately just want to get rid of the buzzing in their ear constantly, right? And so if there was a way to do a small surgery that could fix that, I don't know, maybe people would go for that. In fact, I think a lot of people would, right? Yeah, I don't know what to say to that comment. This is categorically false. Musk has huge privilege, and those lies are what he wants you to believe. He already has had immense wealth, and that he made even more wealth. Python only has bindings for C functions. That's true. It is true. Python is essentially the front end for C. That way, that is what you say. Where's the proof? This is why I don't want to argue about this, because I don't actually have proof one way or another, and it doesn't actually matter. What we can do is judge Musk now, and now I don't really care for him. These people are emotionally vulnerable. Are you still talking about trans people or managers? Yeah, that's fine. There is a balance between benefits and risks of every medical treatment. Lobotomy has many side effects on patients and much more regret rates than gender-affirming surgeries, right? Hypothetically, imagine it was 100% safe. Strongly disagree with you. You don't need genitals. Having healthy or fine genitals, whatever they may look like, is a blessing. You only really miss when it's gone. But I guess you said that a bit colloquially. I did a bit colloquially, but you're right. I should not have said that. I think for most people, having a healthy sex life is very important. For me, gotta be honest, meh. Like, it comes with, you know, like, getting too personal here. I don't really want to get too personal here. Look, it depends on the person. It really does depend on the person. I think a lot of asexual people would be totally fine. And I don't really think of genital as something I actually need. And so for me, it's like, oh yeah, I totally get rid of them. But I understand that's not everybody, right? I think most people would be like, yeah, I totally need my penis. Like, what are you saying? It depends on the person, right? Yeah. Since you bring positivity, I want to bring more positivity. Completely got into analog watching you writing your book. Wait, what's this? Since you bring positivity, I want to bring more positivity. Completely got into analog watching you writing your book, pen and inks. I would love to write on stream. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that or not. Sounds, except it isn't. I feel like we're missing something here, and this is turning quite... for the record, guys, I do not support anybody targeting other people and saying, you know, like, trolling. I don't support that. I don't know what the chat is going to read, but I have a feeling it's starting to get flamey. I don't support flaming. Except it is 100% safe, and more effective gender-affirming surgery and treatment gender... yeah. I think Starlink. Yeah, I think Starlink is generally okay, but I think in the long term it's negative because of the possibility of Kessler syndrome, which is all the satellites running into each other, creating satellite shrapnel, which then creates more and more satellite shrapnel, which then hits the other satellites, destroying all of them. It has the potential to destroy all satellites in low Earth orbit, and then have that fall down to Earth and kill people. It's not great. That's not great. My partner is a trans guy, and there are other things than just hair growing. Okay, this is... I didn't want to talk about it though. I know about this. I don't want to talk about it. I'm caught up. Woo! Caught up with chat. All right. I think SpaceX internet satellites were a mistake. I'm not super knowledgeable about rocketry or Kessler syndrome, but my outside understanding is that reusing rockets is huge for costs. Establishing players, though it was a fantasy. To be honest, it could be. I don't know for sure. I think reusing rockets could be a huge cost save down the road. And in fact, I got to be honest. I was writing this book about what is it? I was writing this book about Point Nemo being the center of Point Nemo is like the single location on Earth that is the farthest away from any other land settlement, and is actually where all the satellites go. And part of that book, I did actually talk about how satellites land and like where you have to collect them and all this kind of stuff. I'm not entirely sure the cost is there right now, but I think in 100 years it will be cost effective to do this. But my argument was that act of allowing reusing rockets could have been done as a NASA research team, instead of a SpaceX research team, is what I'm trying to say. That was my argument there. Giving a Russian asset government contracts to launch things in space is insane. Yeah, lobotomy was just hypothetical. Brain is too complex to achieve that. See, Amorous, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm so sorry that the chat got maybe a little bit fiery, but I don't think we were too fiery. I think we were okay. Your good looks are a bit wasted on you. What are we talking about? I feel like I missed something there. But I would love to hear more about the criticisms of Starlink. So my main criticism of Starlink is what I said before. If you launch a bunch of satellites in space, when they launch them in space, they actually launch them in a line. So satellite 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't do a very good job, but they're all in a line. And you might ask, why are they all in a line? They're in a line because there's a possibility for the first satellite to hit something, right? And if the first satellite hits something, there's redundancy in the line. So the Starlink internet will not come down, right? And so already, based on like where the satellites were positioned, again in a line, so the first satellite will take the brunt of the force and will make it so the other satellites are not affected. Musk is acknowledging, or the SpaceX engineers are acknowledging, that it is entirely possible to for these satellites to run into something, right? And when that happens, it creates a bunch of satellite shrapnel, and this in turn creates the Kessler syndrome effect that I was saying before. So if you have enough satellites in low Earth orbit, soon enough, the entire low Earth orbit becomes just a bunch of space junk. That's all it is. It's space junk. And when it's just a bunch of space junk, it will either fall down to Earth, burn up, or hit somebody, or it will prevent us from going up into space because there's a bunch of space junk there that acts as sandpaper, or large objects that will hit you as you start to go into space. So it could inhibit us from moving, going to the moon, going to Mars, all this kind of stuff, because there's so much shrapnel up there. This is not entirely likely, but the truth is, if you don't plan your trajectories accordingly in low Earth orbit, two objects that are in low Earth orbit will always hit each other at some point, right? Like you just have to be sure that the satellites before they hit each other have either come back down to Earth or gone into the graveyard orbit, well beyond Earth's orbit. That's what you have to do. In the article you referenced, there's no mention about any money that his dad lended to Elon. And from the same article, statement from Elon Musk's mother joined the conversation, saying that if Elon Musk had an emerald mine, they wouldn't have to sleep in a one-bedroom apartment on the floor. She also revealed that when she and her family moved to Toronto in 1989, they stayed into a one-bedroom apartment. So again, my argument here is it doesn't really matter how much money Elon inherited, if he did. I'm judging him based on what he did after he got the Zip2 stuff, or the what's it called now? It's not Zip2. It wasn't Zip2. It was PayPal. I meant to say you inspired me to write, whether it's journaling or anything. I really appreciate that. Hey, I really appreciate you coming in and sharing that. Not only healthy sex life, at least some people pee from there, and any surgery in that area is a risk that stuff like this doesn't work as well anymore. Yeah, you do generally trust that the surgeon has figured that out. That is totally fair. But this is why, again, like I said, most trans people, I say most, I don't actually have statistics on that, but I'm fairly confident most trans people do not actually do the surgeries. Most of them just take HRT that gives them breasts that, shrinks their penis size, or the opposite is true. It gives them hair, grows their muscles, whatever they want. It does most of that transition for them. And the surgeries only come after 2 or 3 years of hormonally transitioning. And at that point, you're pretty sure whether you want the thing or not. I don't see how the article supports your previous message. The article seems to be Musk and his dad. I didn't know that about the satellite lines. Fascinating stuff. All right, I'm actually going now. See you, Justin. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm so sorry that this chat was like probably the worst thing to do after the election. If you don't know, Leos, why not just look it up? What am I looking up? Sorry, am I looking up the Elon stuff? Some things... I'm sorry, but I do appreciate everyone being here. What do I need to look up? Tell me what I need to look up. I'll look it up. The main thing, I didn't look up anything on stream because I'm streaming, and I don't know, it's not really, it's not compelling content to see the streamer Google something. So I would appreciate if someone gave me a link instead, which I guess you already did. That was your link before. We are caught up. For real, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for sharing. No, thank you guys so much for stopping by. I gotta go. I really do have to go. I have to pick up my kids soon. It's already past 5 my time. I just want to check in. If people were like you, world would be better. You're willing to listen. I try to listen, and admittedly, I think I did make people rage quit. Why is the door so short? Whoa, you don't understand. It's very far away. So, okay, let me tell you. So there's a thing called perspective, okay? I'm an idiot. I'm not gonna like mansplain you perspective. People seem to love reaction content. Yeah, I'm not into reaction content. I don't like violating copyright. No, how many trans people have done surgery? Yeah, we can Google that right now. Okay, I'll go ahead and Google that. Oh, hello. Sorry. It says, oh, let me do this button. No, that button. This button. There we go. Chest surgery has been reported at rates of 8 to 25%, and general surgery at 4 to 13%. So of the 1% of people who, are trans, there's a small number of those that take HRT, and of those, a smaller number do surgery. So we're talking about 5% do bottom surgery, and somewhere between, let's say, roughly 10% do top surgery, 10 to 25%, right? So somewhere between 5 and 15, and 10 and 25, depending. This might not be correct. You might have to look at the actual. It says down here, transgender men do 54%, transgender women 28%. It depends, right? So it's not a huge number. Have a nice day. See you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I believe Starlink satellites are small enough that they'll burn up before reaching the ground. The polluting to low Earth orbit seems to be valid concern, though. Yeah, exactly. I think as long as it's... Here's the problem with low Earth orbit, okay? As long as all the companies that are putting satellites up take them down in time, it's totally fine. There's no issues. There will be no issues. And as long as SpaceX does what it says and takes the satellites down in time, it's fine. They'll burn up in the atmosphere. It's not a big deal. The problem is most of the satellites that are up there were left there because companies didn't take them down in time. They promised to, but they didn't. And that's the core problem. I cannot trust SpaceX, or any company for that matter, to do that. I could trust NASA to do that because NASA is going to last forever, or as long as people fund it. But SpaceX, being a company, could just go bankrupt tomorrow. They could have different political motives. Maybe they just say, hey, I'm not going to do this. Like, there's a whole bunch of different things that SpaceX could do that NASA couldn't, which might be the reason it exists, you know? Before I go, don't forget, even in the darkness, there is a bright star. Even in real life darkness, there is a bright star burning, giving us light and heat. I agree with the sentiment, right? Like, it's okay. It's going to be okay, guys. It's going to be okay. We'll figure this out. I do have to go. I do really, really appreciate the conversations here. Alphabeth, thank you so much for following. I really appreciate it. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing more of these like talky, politicsy streams. But I think sometimes it's good just to air out thoughts and opinions and have like a real conversation with someone after this is done. And though I realize that my chat is a bit of an echo chamber, we did have some conversation with people who have a radically different viewpoint than I do. And I think that was valuable. And I feel like it's worthwhile to have more of these discussions in the future. I just don't know how to phrase them or anything like that. For me, I don't know if I'm going to be streaming tomorrow. I don't know when the next stream is. I just wanted to air out some stuff, talk to you guys about politics for a bit, see what you guys have to say. And yeah, that's it. If you guys have any other comments, questions, concerns, ideas, anything like that, feel free to let me know. I'll wait about few more minutes and then I'll go ahead and close stream. I'm wondering if I should just post this on YouTube as well. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't want to like put an upload in front of people's face. It's probably not worth it. But maybe I'll put it on the Leos Labs live channel. Thanks for stream. Great to see you live. Whatever you do, I'm willing to listen. I have respect for you. Hey, I have respect for you being here. I'm an older viewer. I followed because you're reasonable. Sorry, my bad. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thanks. And appreciate you as a person. Have you been working on any fun projects? I have. So I have this animation engine that I've been working on for a long time. Look, the Julia version didn't work, so I transitioned it over to C, and this one's kind of working, but honestly, I'm just a bit burnt out from all the MIT stuff. So instead of writing a book, I have this idea of writing a 10,000 line poem, which I was thinking about doing on stream. I'm not sure if I will, because honestly, who likes poetry? On the other hand, who likes poetry? You have to like kind of like motivate people to read it, and maybe it's worth it to do on stream. I don't know. Oh, come on, 70-80% is mostly about you ranting about things, and politics is not that uncommon. Yeah, I need to stop that, though. I need to actually start doing stuff on stream. Animation engine is so cool. Look, I really want this done. It's just, guys, like, every day is just another disaster in my life, you know? Especially because, like, my kid doesn't sleep through the night, so I'm just, like, zombieing through life, you know? But maybe. I'll think about streaming tomorrow. I need to decide what I want to do. But I do really appreciate the conversation. Let's see where this goes. If you guys want future conversations like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and post on my Discord over here, create invite, copy, paste. I think that'll work. If you want to, feel free to join. I think most people are probably already there. I didn't see too many new chatters, but I do appreciate everyone here. That is it for now. Thank you guys so much for coming in. Have a wonderful day, night, afternoon, morning, evening, whatever time it happens to be your time. And I will see you guys for next time for the next episode of Leos Labs, which will be sometime. I don't know. One thing that this vote did do is it kind of motivated me to get back into the public sphere just a little bit. I just feel like there's so little I can do as a single person. And I think having these discussions with people and trying to explain my opinion in the best way I can and hopefully maybe not persuading people, but learning some along the way, while also maybe convincing people that, de-radicalizing people. I don't know what I'm trying to say. But, these types of like heart-to-heart conversations I think are very important. And I feel like it's important to do more of. Anyway, that is it for now. Thank you guys again for coming in. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.